Hey, hello and welcome to a new short tutorial here on Visual Effects Hive about the new PyroFX inside Houdini. So the new release shipped with some great additions for explosions, and I want to take you here through some simple settings how you can fast and easily create some different explosions within a short amount of time. So to access the explosion setups, go to the shelf here on Simple FX, or when you don't have this shelf here, hit the plus button and go to Simple FX, or go here to the shelves and go to the Simple FX button, and there you can access the different assets like simple GPU explosion, which is using your graphics card, a simple fireball, an aerial explosion for air and sky explosions, simple ground explosion, bone fire, and spreading fire. So in our exercise here, I added a simple aerial explosion, and as you can see, it creates this node tree here for us to access this kind of explosion he's calculating here at the moment. And as you can see, it's a very big fireball like explosion happening there. And as you can see, we also have some spikes here that burst out with high speed from this, like shrapnel or cannon blast. So let's go through the settings here. We have here an explosion center. This is just the point he's generating. You can pretty much access the point and shift or transform your explosion to the point you need. We have an initial start frame, and we have the pyroburst source. So the pyroburst source is like the name saying, it's creating a particle like simulation, which is then later fed into a volume rasterize. And the volume rasterize is making for us a volume out of those particles, which means that we can easily and fast access now the particle generation for the volume world. To adjust your explosion settings, we have here the initial size, which pretty much gives an overview how large the explosion will be. We have the direction, which indicates the vector and alignment of the explosion. We have a spread angle of 180 degrees. So when you change the spread angle, you can see that we can make this explosion more like a ground blast or shrapnel or even aerial. So the maximum is 180 degrees, which means it's going in almost all directions. We have here the roundness, which makes the particles more round or more uneven. We can make a shape offset to generate new seeds of our explosion. So a lot of great control to make this a preset for your needs. We then have here trails. Trails are also generated on the fly. We have at the moment 250. You can see when I put this lower, it's generating less. When I put this higher, it's generating more. So a lot of freedom to play around with the settings. We can adjust the separation. It's adding points to the trails, making them more thicker and more dense. And we can adjust the length of the trails. For example, let's try something with 20. And you can see now how this is bursting out from from nowhere into a nice aerial explosion. We can also adjust the thickness to make it more dense or more less dense. And we also have here a Pyrotrail path. So the Pyrotrail path generates this little coordinate system for trails that are generated, and the arrows accordingly to the direction show us where the trails will fly. We also get a look of the trails with those lines here, and I will do some adjustments to the trails. So let's get a bit higher. Let's lower the spread angle. We have the azimuth start angle, so there you can specify the azimuth of the trail explosion, and here we have also the angle to make it more falling or even more like a round trail explosion. And in the trail generation we can here also make some adjustments to the velocity scale. When you look over here to the right side, we can see that we have some uniform setting. We can also go to variation, and Houdini is adding a variation tab. So this variation tab helps us to add more variation to the element. We can change the drag, and you really should play around with the settings to make your explosion unique and different from others. The Pyrotrail path then goes into a new Pyrotrail source, as we discussed in the beginning. Here you can see how Houdini is generating the trails with particles. So also here I will make some adjustments. We have the length, we'll make it a bit more longer, like spikes. And we also can add noise to make it more turbulent and at the end more realistic. So here you can see the volume rasterize node again. When I hit this little blue button here, it goes right to the node output, and you can see how we here have this volume cloud-like creation of our trails, which then goes into a fire trail split that is going to emerge and right into our pyro solver. So in that way Houdini makes sure that both of the elements here gets into the pyro solver. And when we now hit this little eye blue button here, we can see how our explosion is generated. I'm calculating some frames to see what we get. And you see it's blasting like a thruster or like a little impact to the side, which is pretty cool for this presentation. And we also have the pyro look node here, which bakes our volume into a material node. So it's actually working like a material slot with a smoke, scatter, fire, secondary fire and bindings. And in the smoke tab we can adjust the density of our smoke. We can add some scatter, which we later will see in the rendering how this is all coming together in the shading part. So what I will do now to cache this out is adding here a file cache node. And with the help of the file cache node, you can be able to cache your explosion to disk and make it available even faster from the hard disk. But please keep in mind the BGEO files from Houdini are fairly big, so for decent explosions you need a lot of hard drive, can go up to several hundred gigabytes. So before you cache it out, make sure you have enough space so you can load it later in with this load from disk button here. So on the Pyrosolver tab, we also can make adjustments to the time scale, which means how fast or how slow the simulation is evaluated. So I will make it more slower, so our explosion will be more menacing and slower. And we have here smoke, how much smoke is emitted, temperature, how much temperature is pumped into the explosion, and the expansion of our element here. So in the shape tab we can make adjustments like dissipation, how fast smoke and fire is vanishing over time. We have the disturbance. The shredding is adding little detail into our smoke and fire. It's set very low. When you want more tiny details and more fluffy elements, then higher the shredding. And the turbulence, making everything more turbulent and more chaotic. So, and before you cache your explosion to disk, make sure you go to the voxel size here and enter a value that is working with your computer settings, because very low values make the explosion very detailed and add a lot of voxels into the simulation, but it's taking a lot more time to calculate. So you should always make some variation in your computer specifications of the voxel size. So I'm adding 0.1 and cache this to disk now.